Welcome to Conext 2022, the annual gathering of Digital Council Africa members, partners, and stakeholders. This year is iconic Cape Town, South Africa. The Digital Council embraces the extraordinary possibilities that the digital economy holds for the African continent. The Digital Council Africa's members have one thing in common. We believe that digital transformation is about putting people first. To our sponsors and partners, thank you for participating. Welcome to the Huawei workshop. This workshop will focus on the fiber industry development and policy incentives, fiber business exploration, and lastly, joint cooperation.
And just for the record, the rumor is true. We're going to have a number of lucky draws. So if your name is not in the hat yet, please make sure that you do participate. Being Huawei, obviously, it's world-class prizes that we will be presenting. For those of you at the back, you're more than welcome to move a bit forward, and then we're going to jump right into the session. Right, so my name is Marius Engelbreg. I'm going to be your MC for this day, or for this afternoon, and facilitate the events that's happening. And I think we can start officially then by clearly saying and welcoming all our distinguished delegates that we've got here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to share the segment with you today. And our segment is titled Fiber Lighting Up Africa's Future. I think we all know and understand the important role that fiber plays in providing the relevant connectivity. And we've got a diverse range of speakers today that I think will be to the benefit of you all. And we're really excited to be able to share this with you today. So thank you for making time available today. We're going to start off with our first opening remarks coming from somebody who needs no introduction at all. Juanita, if you please can join me on stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to kick off this session this afternoon. And let me first just welcome Deputy Minister. Welcome back. It's not often, I have to say, that we have the privilege of having a dignitary's attention for so long. So it's a real privilege to have you and many members, actually, of your team joining us today. And then, of course, I just want to also acknowledge Deputy Minister Kundo Andrea Matthew from Tanzania. Welcome to South Africa. Jambo. Nice to have you. Director Digital Economy and Telecoms from Côte d'Ivoire, Lassina Kunati. Good. Welcome. From Kenya, NCA, David Mabu. And of course, very important people, the president of Huawei for CNBG, Mr. Samuel Chen, welcome. And Mr. Frank Yang, the VP of Southern Africa. Colleagues, we do a lot of work within the digital economy, and many of you know about the Digital Council, the work that we do, the effort that we put in, talking about not just connecting everybody, but topics like the digital divide, finding mechanisms to help underserved communities find connectivity. And one of the things that I have to say is, in doing this work, we often host workshops, working group, panel discussions, webinars. We we create and craft white papers that we make available to governments across sub-Saharan Africa on the work that we do. But we're a really small team in the Digital Council. You know, there's us. We rely on committees, people that are volunteers to make the work happen behind the scenes. We haven't got the capacity to do that. And one thing that I've got to honestly say is that consistently, every time we need help with a position paper, a policy paper, we've got people from the team from Huawei that give us the backup and the support to do this. So it's really a privilege for me today to welcome the team from Huawei. And while I do that, I want to thank you for the work that you put in behind the Digital Council to help us pull some of our projects over the line. And today it's a privilege for me to start this conversation and to welcome the speakers that are going to share this afternoon with you the work that we're really passionate about. 12 years ago when we started this organization and we were talking about the importance of fiber, we never thought that we would have this sort of scale of events come together and people that are supporting the work that we do. And we're very privileged to have partners like yourselves that have supported us throughout the years and helped us scale the important work of finding connectivity from small papers and helping us deliver the message of pre-connectivity in households, something that I know the team is very passionate about, to bigger conversations such as 5G, cybersecurity. You guys really are doing a wonderful work. Thank you from myself as the Digital Council for all the effort that you put in. And I know that you guys also are very busy in your own life, so we really appreciate it. Everybody, it's a real privilege for me to start the session this afternoon. And Marius, I'm going to hand back to you to start the real intelligent dialogue for this afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
For those kind words. Yes, it's a road that we've been traveling along for a number of years. And again, I can just commend Juanita being in there, in the front, leading, and we being able to support. It's really a privilege. Thank you for those kind words. So we're going to move on to our next opening remarks today from Mr. Samuel Chen, who is our president for the Southern Africa Carrier Network Business Group. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Honorable Deputy Minister of South Africa and Honorable Deputy Minister of Tanzania, and all the ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon. My name is Samuel, and I'm in charge of Huawei Southern Africa Carrier Business. So it's my honor to present the context today is as a keynote open speech. So before I start, I would like, on behalf of Huawei, to express our gratitude for all the continuous support from our customer side. And so the keynote speaker, opening speak is fiber is a cornerstone of the digital economy, and fiber is lighting up the Africa's future. So we all know two decades before, and we all know what happened in the Chinese economy growth very fast. But before the China government started the business growth, the four important connectivities they are take actions is rural connectivities, water supply, electricity supply, road access, and network connectivities. So we mentioned the connectivity is driving the entire society to grow faster. And we've been through a lot of, in the past 2 years about the COVID and the pandemic and everything from offline to online. Yeah, work from home and online educations. But in the meanwhile, the connectivity also drive the digital economy and digital transformations and bring more value for our enterprise customers. And what we talk about is a digital economy we can't avoid is connectivity and also for fiber as a foundation, because we all know the digital economy dominated GDP and more than 43.7% of GDP comes from a digital economy, right? And secondly, is we talk about the fiber. And the fiber is enable of the digital society and also catalyst of the economic growth. So if we talk about the digital economy, we couldn't avoid it. So many scenarios. For example, e-government, e-commerce, and digital services. But most important is telecom. Telecom is the core of the digital economy. So that means in the telecom, what is most important is the connectivities. So fiber provides the foundation of connectivities to provide all the possibilities for enable all the industries. And in the meanwhile, fiber has so many advantages. Firstly, it can provide ultra-fast link connection. And for example, from 50 mega, 100 mega, 500 mega, even for the gig mega connections. In the meanwhile, fiber can also provide automatically reliable service guarantee and with very low time latency. But also, of course, fiber compared with the cables and the 4G, 5G, it can realize the energy saving and to reduce the carbon emissions. So for Huawei's model, we are proposed the carbon model to the fiber and for the new growth from fiber connectivities. What is the carbon model? Firstly is the coverage. Secondly is architecture. Firstly is the fusions. And for the coverage is easy to understand. Nowadays we are enlarged to coverage from fiber to site, fiber to enterprise, and fiber to home. And secondly is architecture. If we talk about the fiber, we couldn't avoid it. It's how we build our target network about optical network for future, especially for convergence from fiber with the cloud. And secondly is the confusion. What is the fusion? And today we talk about the digital transformation, but also along with the cloudification. So how build up the cloudification and the network, synergy network, as converged connectivities is more important. So we mentioned the fusion between the cloud and the network is very important. So I will explain one by one. Firstly is the coverage. What is coverage? Coverage is innovative solutions accelerate fiber to site, to home, to enterprise, to everything. And today we are facing the 4G, 5G accelerated deployment widely, especially for 5G areas coming. But fiber to site is more important to make sure the access network from run site from 10G to 50G, even for 100G, the throughput. Secondly is fiber to enterprise. You know, fiber to enterprise, nowadays the enterprise need a very high capacity with a reliable services quality, and fiber provides such kind of possibility for the enterprise users. And thirdly is fiber to home. Nowadays, Africa region, we need broadband services for home users, but we are lack of fiber. We are lack of high throughput with high quality services provided for our home broadband users. We can use fiber as a mainly choices for our customers. But in the meanwhile, how reduce the fiber deployment resources and costs is very important. So Huawei proposed our AirPong solutions plus our digital quick audience solutions. For example, through the AirPong solutions, we are much reduce the deliver cost from a traditional teaching. And in the digital quick audience solutions, we are realize the technical people doesn't do any splicing and reduce the higher skills technicians needed. So this is we mentioned the coverage. And secondly is architecture. What is the architecture and as a foundation of present and future business growth? And firstly is the three layers. First layer is of course is optical, fully optical connected network, and that means we use a fiber as a build up the foundation network and the OXC network and optical exchange network. And through this way, one way we can much improve the transmission efficiency compared with the SDH networks traditional. We can improve 70% the transmission efficiency. Secondly, it's much reduced the room space. And more than 90% room space will be much reduced, of course, also for the power consumptions. And secondly is the IP connection network. It's a converged IP network. And use such kind of a network plus with IPv6, SRv6, such kind of high technologies, we can ensure the physical network with a slicing network and just the easily deployment services for enterprise within second levels. And thirdly, the top layer is we mentioned is ADN. What is ADN? It's autonomous driving network. Because when we're running the network, we are also facing very high OPEX and running operation and maintenance costs. So how we build up the autonomous driving network and to through intelligent and zero touch and self-services and self-troubleshooting. All of this make our network more intelligent. Okay? So for fusion is very important. Not as we are facing the cloudification along with our digital transformation. For the cloudification, and firstly is a quick migration to the cloud. All the enterprise, all the application services in the future will move to cloud. So how to make this migration is more smoothly. And also enterprise need a cloud-based private network. So how we build this network is more smoothly. Secondly is all the enterprise will have a multiple cloud policies, not just like one cloud service provider, but multiple cloud. And how make this happen? And thirdly is core production services move to cloud, and everything running on cloud. And secondly is the network from edge to the regional to the central will also bring the new network reconstructions and how to build out target architecture with high capacity and of course is green network. So all of this we are facing, that means in the building the converged, the optical network connect to fiber, connect to site, connect to enterprise, connect to home, and also target to future oriented. So this is what we mentioned is a fusion. So we talk about so many concepts about the fusion architecture, but we couldn't ignore the policy and ecosystem is to drive the fiber unleashed values. So we talk about fiber's value. We never forgot the regulators, the government, the associations, and also the operators work with the supplier together to build up the future. Yeah, and actually, nowadays, globally, all the countries think about to make such kind of national strategy for fiber. Whatever Switzerland and also for Philippines is nating the strategy from national level to make very clear policy for the fiber and for the business. And the last one, what we mentioned is what we normally focus the solutions, but we can't ignore the technology and the social responsibilities. So for Huawei, every year, 20% of our revenue is continuously investment for our R&D, for the basic research, for the cut-edge studies, and for all the engineering innovations. So that means that make us 60% of the core standards and more than 1/3 of core patents is from optical industry is contributed by Huawei. But we also continue to booming the fiber industry deployment and prosperity through the talent cultivation and the business consulting, and also for the golden partners, and also for the joint innovation with our ecosystem partner together. So we always mention, if you want to work fast, work alone. If you want to work far, work together. So for Huawei, we would like to establish such kind of ecosystem, work with all our partners, and to focus innovation in connectivities, and also to accelerate the African fiber arrows. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for sharing those insights with us. I can feel there's a real buzz in the room about the lucky draw. So those of you who have not submitted your name cards yet, on the table there, we've made provision for you. Please believe me, you don't want to miss out on that. Again, thank you, Mr. Chen. Next up, I am honored to welcome the Deputy Minister, Philly Mapulane.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, can you hear me? I took a bit of time to come on stage. I was trying to look for the table where these tickets are so that I can participate in the competition. Program Director, thank you for the opportunity. Let me start by greeting the Deputy Minister, my colleague from Tanzania, Mr. Kundo Andrew Matthew. Once more, Dr. Andy Lengaba, the President of the Digital Council, and your CEO, UNITA. Let me greet also the executives from Huawei who have requested that we must come and share with you the input on the rollout of broadband and the role that we are playing in facilitating that. Thank you very much for the invitation, although you have made me to come back again here. I'm sure that I will be repeating myself in some of the things that I will be saying. Our DDGs from the department and other senior and officials, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are here once again to share with you the work that we are doing in the department, particularly around the rollout of broadband. As I was saying that, for those who have listened to me in the morning session, in the previous sessions, please accept my apology because you might have to experience the same issues that I will be raising again. So it will look like I'm repeating myself. But these are the same issues that we are dealing with in the department. So if you have listened to me speaking about this broadband rollout, you will think that I'm repeating the same speech, but it is not. I'm particularly passionate about this one because we still have got a challenge in this country of rolling out connectivity, particularly to the rural areas, where it is mostly needed. In the past, I would have quoted from a study by the United Nations that shows that as more and more people are being brought into, they get access to the internet for the first time, there is still about 2.7 billion people who are found in the developing countries like in Africa and other developing countries who don't have access whatsoever to connectivity, who cannot participate in the digital economy that we are experiencing now. So for us, this is a very important topic about the rollout of broadband, which we will be sharing with you. But we also think that we will learn from you about some of the modern solutions that are available in the market to facilitate this broadband rollout. Now, in supporting the rollout of digital infrastructure in the country, our Department of Communications and Digital Technologies is in the process of finalizing a rapid deployment policy, rapid development policy for the rapid deployment and provisioning of electronic communication facilities. The policy objective is to provide a process that must be followed by a licensee to access property to deploy electronic communications network and facilities, including the right of property owners and any other person whose rights and legitimate expectations may be materially and adversely affected in this regard. As a government whose foundation is the protection of basic human rights and democracy, this policy will ensure that we maintain our respect for the rights for all. Our inclusive approach to development is another way through which we bring all relevant stakeholders on board any process we embark upon. That's what distinguishes us from the others, because ours is a caring and a people-centered government. So this rapid deployment policy must be seen in the context of what I said earlier on about the work that we are doing and that we have done with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on the model or the draft bylaw that would want it to be adopted by the municipalities throughout the country so that we can facilitate things like the way leaves, applications, and so forth. And once more, we're making a call to yourself to please submit your comments so that we can shape this bylaw, so that we can have a policy and a legal instrument that will facilitate the rapid deployment, the rollout of broadband, particularly fiber. Now let me just speak about the project that we have in the department, which is called SA Connect. Now, in responding to the infrastructure needs of our country, economy and the people in general, we have launched the South Africa Connect as a government. In essence, this project, SA Connect, is South Africa's broadband policy that was adopted by Cabinet in December of 2013. Upon reflection, since the South African government unveiled its national broadband fiber optic policy in 2013, fiber connectivity has rapidly spread to workplaces, households, and colleges throughout the country. With this, people's lives have been changed for the better. Following this 2013 SA Connect policy, the department started with the SA Connect project to implement the objectives of the policy. As of today, we have already gone through the first phase of the envisaged 3 phases of the policy. Now, recently, Cabinet has adopted the SA Connect Phase 2, through which we would like to launch, or we will launch, a national project which will mobilize the capacities, resources, and energy of both the public and the private sectors, together with civil society, in order to connect South Africans to each other. So I must say that through this project, in the next year, we would like to see 80% of our people having access to the internet. So this phase 2 of the SA Connect, it mainly seeks to ensure that we provide open access base stations to cater for households, and this will see the deployment of community Wi-Fi hotspots. The private sector, particularly the SMMEs, The mobile virtual network operators and the internet service providers will also participate by expanding this connectivity to the individual households. So government will bring the base stations, will bring the community Wi-Fi, hotspots, and working with the private sector will then take it to the individual households. Program Director, drawing lessons from our experiences, it will be ideal to have these SMMEs coming from within local communities to empower those SMMEs that are in those particular communities. This will ensure that we empower SMMEs on a broad-based scale instead of empowering the same companies that are already benefiting from initiatives such as this. In the recent times, the department issued a policy directive which informed the invitation to apply as part of the recent IMT spectrum before the process was embarked upon. So this ITA spelled out the universal service obligations which requires the recipients of the IMT spectrum to provide broadband services to schools, health facilities, tribal authorities, and libraries. And so, as I said in the earlier session this morning, that the telecommunications mobile operators have committed over $1.5 billion towards this project as part of its social obligations. And through the regulator, ICASA, there are now discussions about exactly how we will start with this project. With connectivity, we are working with the Department of Basic Education to identify all the schools that will require connectivity. We are working with the Department of Health to identify all the clinics and the health facilities. We are working with COGTA to identify all the traditional authorities so that we can map them and then we can hand them over to the mobile operators so that we can start connecting them. But we have agreed on them coming on board. In the end, the SA Connect will ensure that the SITA execute its mandate in providing services to government facilities based on existing initiative. Program Director, the government has resolved to rationalize its state-owned companies to improve service delivery and operational efficiencies. As the first phase of this project, the DCDT is working on the merger of broadband in Fraco, which is one of our entities. I'm sure you all know it, with Centec to form one company with the capabilities for backhaul fiber as well as access infrastructure. This project is underway. In fact, we have agreed that this merger will involve Centec acquiring broadband in Fraco so that we can facilitate to have one state infrastructure company. So this will involve, of course, the amendment to the legislation, which we are working on in amending the ECA and taking this through Parliament. To enable the merged company to achieve its objectives will require for it to be able to reach the economies of scale necessary to be competitive and succeed in delivering broadband connectivity to underserved South Africans and to government. In our view, there is a justification for the consolidation of the fiber assets of other state-owned entities in the next phase. There are other state-owned companies that have aerial fiber like Eskom and Transnet, as well as Sanral, that contains trench fiber along the South African highways. The department is working on strategies and mechanisms that will ensure this fiber infrastructure is consolidated to the benefit of achieving the above-mentioned objectives. There are those who argue very strongly that if we are to achieve connectivity, we require a very strong state-led rollout of fiber. So working with all the state-owned entities, if we collaborate together, we should be able to have a state-led broadband rollout, particularly to the rural areas, so that we can get all our people connected. Like I said in the morning, there is a tendency to concentrate only in the urban areas as we roll out fiber, and as a result, we leave others behind. So this argument is very strong that we should do that. But first, we need to consolidate so that we can have a very strong state digital infrastructure company, and in the long run have all of these state-owned entities that have got access to these assets to consolidate and for the state to lead that process going forward. Program Director, there is no question, no doubt that connectivity has a role to play in addressing unemployment, which remains one of South Africa's most pressing socio-economic challenges. I must say that I was very inspired by a story this morning that was related to us, courtesy of Harambee, of a young girl, a 22-year girl young lady from Khayelitsha, who was telling us about her experiences of the barriers to entry and what Harambee has done to facilitate that those barriers must be dealt with, and she must get opportunities to enter the market. Because what she was telling us, I think it was a way of saying to all of us in the industry, let's break these barriers, let's remove all these unnecessary requirements, 5 years experience for the young people to access the market. Let's facilitate that process so that more and more we can have young people getting into the market, so that we can have the significant impact on the unemployment that we are having in the country, but also our economy, our digital economy can be enhanced, and we can have young, vibrant young people entering the market. I'm told that we're also working with Harambee on the Presidential Employment Stimulus Package in the department, working with BBI and the presidency, so that we can make a lasting impact on unemployment. Now, just to quote a study that was done recently in the aftermath of the pandemic, we know that unemployment rose to a record high of 34.9% by the third quarter of 2021. So the study, the RTI study, which was titled The Economic Development Impact Potential of Internet Connectivity in Sub-Saharan Africa, finds that people were 2.2% more likely to be employed if they lived within 500 meters of the fiber network. The study also highlights that connecting South Africa's most densely populated areas will translate to a greatest increases in total employment. Therefore, the above government initiatives are intended to boost the economy by enabling the rollout of digital connectivity to rural and underserviced communities, facilitating access to digital information, content, and services, reducing the cost of access to digital infrastructure and services over time, ensuring that there is digital access to public sector services throughout the year. Our emphasis is on access, not coverage. We are aware that our country has 100% network coverage. However, the disparity between coverage and access is what we need to address. In conclusion, South Africa is strategically located to provide a leading role on the continent. The extensive fiber consolidation discussed above will afford South Africa the opportunity to link the rest of Africa, particularly the landlocked countries, with international submarine cables like what we were speaking about this morning, the Google's Equiano, West Africa Cable Systems, Seacom, and many others. Already Broadband Infraco owns a stake in West Africa Cable System, which will make it easier to connect to the rest of Africa. Our vision must be to lead in the region and continentally. On behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa, I wish to take this opportunity once more to thank you for the invitation and also to wish you success in the deliberations of this conference, and thank Huawei for the invitation to come and share with us, with you, some of these initiatives around connectivity, around broadband rollout. As I said, you might have experienced what I've said before, but this is what we are doing in order to facilitate broadband rollout. What is important for us is access. What is important for us is to make sure that more than 80% of South Africans at least have got access to the internet so that they can participate in this digital economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister, for those insights. And again, yes, it's very important that we do cooperate together. And Huawei is always available as a trusted advisor to come alongside and assist to the benefit of all, because ultimately we would like to see every village connected on the continent. Thank you for that, sir. Our next session is going to be a virtual session, and our topic is going to be fiber industry development and policy incentives. And the speaker of this session from Omdia, the research director, is Michael Philpott. So I'm going to ask the AV guys to get that going first. Thank you.
Although complex to fully quantify, the importance of broadband connectivity to a country's socio-economic development is undeniable. For many years, therefore, there has been a clear focus from all stakeholders to reduce what we call the digital divide. But although these efforts have been successful in reducing the size of the unconnected population, I would argue that the true digital divide is not shrinking, but actually continues to grow. This is because just being connected is not what really matters. With broadband, it's the quality of that connection and what you can do with it that counts. As the most future-proof broadband technology that brings the ultimate broadband experience, rolling out all fibre-based broadband networks is therefore key to finally reducing this divide and to ensuring any country's future development. The chart on this slide shows that in Africa, the total connected population will grow from 35% back in 2020 to 55% by 2027. However, this is largely pushed by mobile data connectivity, with only 11% of African population also being connected by fixed broadband technology as of this date. Although it is recognised that the mobile connectivity can bring quick and significant economic impact in emerging economies, it has also been modelled that this impact then reduces due to diminishing returns as penetration increases. Fixed broadband, on the other hand, brings a continued growth, supporting a subscription market that alone was worth over $356 billion on a global basis at the end of 2021, and supporting a wider ICT industry that typically accounts for between 2 and 7% of a country's overall GDP. Modelling then done by the ITU and the OECD suggests that as fixed broadband penetration continues to increase, then so does both GDP and overall productivity. Advanced broadband infrastructure can then also aid in levelling up regions within a country, enabling greater innovation and entrepreneurship, thus generating new jobs as well as supporting other social benefits such as greater education and better healthcare. This is why I come to my conclusion that the real digital divide is growing, because if we accept that more advanced broadband services bring greater socio-economic benefits, which only accelerate in the future as we move to advanced applications such as XR and the metaverse, then it is clear that those countries with the most advanced broadband networks will continue to develop faster and pull further ahead from their neighbours. The chart shows how stark this more detailed view of the digital divide is. By 2027, there'll be more people in Oceania, Eastern and Southeastern Asia, North America and Western Europe on 1 gigabit per second connections than that of the total fixed broadband population of any type of connection in Africa. It is vital, therefore, that countries in regions such as Africa now look to accelerate their own fibre network plans so they don't get left behind in this new digital world. One advantage emerging broadband markets do have is that they can leapfrog more traditional broadband countries and move directly to optical fibre networks. Countries such as the US, Canada, Germany and the UK may be advanced broadband countries and have a long history of deploying broadband networks. But because of this history, they have significant legacy copper-based infrastructure, which they now need to manage and evolve towards fibre. These countries are shown in cluster 2 in the right-hand chart. Due to their legacy, therefore, they have to evolve step by step through the different broadband generations shown in the World Broadband Association's roadmap on the left. First utilising copper, then evolving to fibre to the node, fibre to the home, etc., etc. Emerging broadband countries, shown in cluster 3, however, do not need to follow this same evolution path shown by the yellow arrows in the chart, but can move directly to fibre-first broadband countries as shown by the blue arrow. A good example of this strategy is Thailand, which only 5 years ago had a household broadband penetration of only 30%, and although the country had developed some copper-based networks, was already starting to rapidly adopt fibre. Now in 2022, 63% of their broadband-connected households are connected by fibre, and Thailand has some of the best broadband quality metrics in the world. As it continues its fibre expansion plans, Thailand will now quickly move towards an advanced fibre broadband country, as shown in cluster 1. Due to the importance of fibre investment and its impact on the global development, Omdia has created a fibre benchmark known as the Fibre Development Index, which is now in its 3rd year. Unlike other benchmarks that only track a single development metric such as coverage or household penetration, the Fibre Development Index aims to capture all elements of a fibre network investment, including the overall fibre access coverage, fibre to the home penetration, fibre to the business penetration, mobile fibre backhaul, and advanced fibre WDM core technology. Additionally, the index then measures the outcome of this investment in terms of the country's overall broadband experience. To do this, Omdia has partnered with Ookla, using its detailed speed test data to measure the medium download and upload speeds, as well as the medium network latency and jitter in every country. This chart shows the high-level results of the overall index. We can see there's cluster 1, the advanced fibre network countries in light blue, with Singapore leading the group as it has done for the past 3 years. China is quickly moving up the rankings in this group, and we predict could soon overtake South Korea and move into 2nd place. In the cluster 2 countries shown in purple, we can see that with its fibre strategy, Thailand is already now leading this group, ahead of the advanced Western European countries of Spain, Denmark, Sweden and Portugal. Chile is another big movers in this group, rising 15 places this year to 13th position. Driven by a mix of public funds as part of the country's national fibre optic project, as well as private investment, Chile has seen a rapid increase in the fibre to the premise coverage from 29% back in 2020 to 64% in 2022, which in turn has led to fibre to the home penetration more than doubling and also therefore a significant improvement in its overall broadband experience. If we now take a closer look at the African countries in the index and compare them to the two of those quickly advancing nations that we've already mentioned, China and Thailand, we can quickly see that the African countries have mainly focused their investment on mobile backhaul. Where fixed broadband is available, latency and jitter is average to good, most likely as although not fibre-based, the networks are relatively new. However, due to the lack of fibre investment in the access networks, download speeds especially are very low when compared to countries such as China and Thailand. In China, for a comparison, the country has historically put a lot of investment and focus into expanding its fibre coverage and penetration, where today it scores very highly, and is now focusing on increasing the speed and improving the quality of the broadband services overall. This will lead to further increases in those metrics in the future. Thailand, on the other hand, with an early focus on fibre to the premise, has already impressive scores around broadband quality where fixed broadband is available. The challenge for the country now is to continue to push that fibre coverage out to more rural areas, as well as put into place policies to maintain affordability for the wider population to continue to increase fibre penetration. For African nations, therefore, it is vital that clear and ambitious broadband speed and coverage targets are set. I would recommend to initially focus any fibre deployment on key economic zones and to public buildings such as education facilities, and then spread into more rural areas over time. To drive penetration, affordability is then key, and targets to reduce service pricing is recommended. To enable greater fibre network rollout, especially outside of key economic areas, it is likely that public investment will be required. However, investment is not the only way that government and regulators can help. It is also vital that they, 1, facilitate fibre deployment through municipality approvals using existing resources such as government buildings, streetlights, ducts, etc., and encouraging the sharing of key infrastructure and facilities with other organisations such as utility companies. 2, introduce and enable flexibility in partnership arrangements, such as allowing agreements around co-financing, collaborative models and public-private partnerships. 3, implement regulatory flexibility, including the removal of any outdated or non-essential regulations. And finally, 4, improving the access to telecoms facilities and physical infrastructure to reduce the cost of rights of way. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention. If you'd like to find out more about the Fibre Development Index or to receive a free detailed analysis report, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you to Omdia for providing us with those insights. The next speaker I'm privileged to introduce to you is from the Ivory Coast, the Director of Digital Economy and Telecommunication, Mr. Lassina Kunate.
The remote for the presentation.
There's a clicker there.
It's on there. Good afternoon, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates. I'm very pleased to be here. I want to say bonsoir, warm greetings from Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa. It's my pleasure to be here today and to share a great experience we are proud of in Côte d'Ivoire, which is about the fiber pre-provisioning as an accelerator for the penetration of broadband in our country. Before I get to the point, I would like to take you through a few slides just to put things in a context. Let's get back to the COVID pandemic. We think there are some lessons we took from this pandemic. One is we all witnessed how technology were at the forefront in the fight against this pandemic, offering the only option to businesses, to government, to individuals, to keep business running, to keep services, to keep living. The second one, I think from the previous presentation, we had there is a necessity of flexibility in the regulation. When it's come to make some resource available, like spectrum, or like numbering, shortcode, to enable the implementation of some services, of some application, there were some challenges. We learned from this one. And the third point, very importantly for us, was the necessity of digital infrastructure, connectivity. Whereas we had the solution, whereas we had the platform, we couldn't take it to the communities because there was a lack of connectivity. From these lessons, in Côte d'Ivoire, we plan to seize the opportunities that digital technology offers to build strong pillars to serve as foundation for a more inclusive, secure, resilient, and sustainable information society. And for us, key are building strong, robust, and reliable connectivity for everyone, not only in profitable areas, and fostering a national broadband development strategy, formulation and implementation. Before we go to the point again, I would like at a glance to present what our national broadband strategy is about. Looking at the key indicators, you will see we are very low in terms of broadband penetration in our country. It's almost only 5%. Looking at the broadband experience as well, low average download speed at only 24 Mbps. Compared to other countries, this is a very low. A reason why the last national digital development strategy we adopted last year came with a very clear vision and strategic goals aiming at a leapfrog broadband access development by 2025. Those are some key indicators. On the FBB penetration side, you will see that we targeting 30%. We have some strong commitment as well in terms of penetration and coverage, population coverage. We also acknowledge key action for an effective implementation. Two sets of actions. One, action to optimize the network environment. This goes from broadband top-level strategy design to improving network construction environment. And the other side, policy support actions to ensure the strategy implementation. Those are really important to implement a strategy. Coming to the pre-provisioning project in terms of fiber, it takes ground from the provision of a law. This law in Côte d'Ivoire is called the Information Society Orientation Law and was adopted in 2017. The first provision, the government recognized access to the internet and electronic communication and security as a fundamental human right. This is key. And the second provision is that the law stipulated any real estate developer authorized by the state to carry out its activity on the national territory must provide access to very high-speed electronic communication, infrastructure, and telecommunication. In addition to that, we are also trying to leverage on a commitment of the government. The government has a plan to provide or to deliver up to 50,000 houses a year for the next 5 or 10 years. This is where we're trying to leverage on. And we come up with the fiber provisioning project in Côte d'Ivoire. The project consists in pre-cabling buildings for access to very high speed by equipping all buildings from their design with a universal communication medium to which all types of electronic communication equipment can then be connected. During the construction of the building, a fiber optic pre-wiring must allow the connection of all current and future systems by avoiding intervention on the cable itself. This wiring is carried out in the same way as other services supply: electricity, water, gas, and those are the key on this project. The network established in the building must be open in such a way as to allow the connection of any type of equipment by the various authorized operators. We think that execution of this project will make possible to give access with digital technology to users from their place of residence. The main objective and goals: it's about establishing a normative, technical, and institutional framework for the pre-cabling of buildings in fiber optics for access to very high-speed broadband, which means with the ecosystem we have to work to define the regulatory framework, to define the institutional framework, develop and validate the reference framework for the establishment and control of the fiber optic network, draft regulatory text as well. We want to make sure residential buildings meet the requirement of the law and the requirement of multiple telecom enterprise for sharing and use. Looking at this figure, it's all about putting all the ecosystem around a table and come with a plan, a common understanding to address the issues so that we can save time and money with fiber coming into the houses. All the fiber infrastructure inside the wall or building will be deployed by the developer. Looking at the big picture, fiber provisioning will be in new buildings and community. Fiber facilities might be constructed at the same time as those buildings. The investment will be handled by owner. What are the key benefits? On the right-hand side, you can see for the residents' perspective, they will have fiber access since day one. For the developer, it's a brown enhancement by fiber, like fiber broadband estate. For the operators, quick fiber coverage, and more importantly, saving in cost. How do we get that? It's required a cross-department collaboration. For the policy planning phase, we had a joint working group led by the ICT Ministry, but involving all the experts coming from other ministries, construction, urban planning, the operators, suppliers, we had everyone. For the policy execution phase, the government is responsible for administrative, management, and process review. Operators are responsible for technical acceptance. Those are from very clear principle. We agree on detailed technical standards with regard to fiber pre-deployment design guide, fiber pre-deployment and engineering and acceptance guide. In such a way, we got an open access and synchronous construction. We got very strong control points to enforce the policy. The key national stakeholders can be divided into two main groups. Sectorial members, which is the ministry on all the public institutions reporting to the ministry, laboratories, universities, national universities and telecommunication, equipment and technology suppliers, operators, non-sectorial members, the other ministries, and other laboratories as well. The key benefit on the consumer and maybe developers side, increase simplicity and flexibility to users, ability to connect any equipment to the available socket without having to touch the cable in case of moving or changing equipment. Terminal installed quickly by the occupant. Ability for users to connect to the network at a different point with a different point in the structure. For operators, based on the discussion we have with them, they all agree that at the end of the day, this will imply saving of millions of dollars in civil work cost reduction with infrastructure sharing and the collaboration. A quick fiber coverage, which is a speed to market. On the government side, this will lead to leapfrog broadband access by 2030, with plus 50,000 new households expected to be covered every year. This will guarantee fair access to the NBN market for more operators. We are expecting this project to attract more participants to invest in the broadband services. And it will help the government to meet some strategic goals like bridging the digital divide, ensuring broadband access for all, and facilitate access to information via digital technology. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kunate. There's a number of things, key items that I picked up there that I would really like to congratulate you on. Getting the right mechanisms in place, involving the stakeholders, putting it into legislation, and making it happen. And that's what we should all aim for, to ensure that we can provide those connectivities speedily and cost-effective. And that's why it's critical that you have the relevant cooperation between government stakeholders, private sectors, and developers. So from our side, we congratulate Ivory Coast for taking that initiative. The next speaker I'm privileged to introduce to you from Tanzania is the Deputy Minister Kundo Andrea Matthew from the Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Phili Maplane, Deputy Minister, Your Excellency, Mr. Chen Joe Huawei, President of South African Career Network Business Corp, government officials present here, Excellency Minister, if available here, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank God for this opportunity to be here today to join with this group with multiple experience in the sector of telecommunication and the ICT. I'm honored to stand before this recognized congregation as a representative from the government of the peoples of the United Republic of Tanzania to speak on the future and development of ICT and its infrastructure in contributing to the development of social economics within the country. I want to take this opportunity to thank Huawei for inviting our ministry to attend this crucial digital infrastructure summit. Secondly, I would like to thank the organizer on behalf of Honorable Nape Moses Nnauye, the Minister of Information, Communication and Information Technology. He accepted the invitation with open arms, but could not be with us today due to his tight schedule. I bring to you the greeting from Honorable Minister. I ask you to accept them. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past decade, the ICT sector has become one of the world's most successful and inspiring ecosystems. As with other countries, each country needs to encourage and motivate the use of IT to develop those countries. The United Republic of Tanzania has made great strides in the development and the use of ICT and is committed to placing ICT at the center of the development agenda. Various ICT efforts made Tanzania hold the highest number in the use of ICT in various service delivery across all sectors in the country. The United Republic of Tanzania witnessed the growth in the ICT sector, including the growing number of mobile telecom operators. Currently, there are 7 competitive mobile network operators. Other investment made in Tanzania like data center, submarine cable, manufacturing of optic fiber cable. Tanzania is committed to creating favorable conditions to attract investment in telecommunication sector. The United Republic of Tanzania considers the National Information and Communication Technology broadband backbone as an essential strategic vehicle intended to provide reliable, cost-efficient, and efficient connectivity and accessible ICT infrastructure, services, and facilities to the entire population for enhanced socio-economic development and create a knowledge-based society. Distinguished past participant, the government plan is to extend the optic fiber to reach several areas in the country, preferably to the district level, to increase the utilization of broadband internet from 45% to 80%, as well as to increase the number of internet users from 43% to 80% in the year 2025 and enhance the usage of mobile phones. Our national information and communication technology broadband backbone is connected to 2 international submarines cable that are landed in Dar es Salaam, namely East African Submarine System, EASY, and SEACOM. The construction of 4 submarine cable to Africa is underway and is expected to be operational in 2024. We invite contributors from all sectors across the globe for joining us to fulfill our promise by the year 2025 written in our 3rd National 5-Year Development Plan, such as TTCL and Huawei. We value our partner for constructing Tanzania digital transformation together. Ladies and gentlemen, the government-constructed government communication network, GovNet, has secured and affordable shared network communication across the government to facilitate communication. Currently, above 300 MDAs, ministry, department, and agencies, local government authorities, regional hospital, regional secretariat, and are all connected to the network. The government communication network, GovNet, is connected to internet exchange, which improves local service available to local service provider by keeping local content local within the country. Ladies and gentlemen, following the 5G service launch in major population center, access to the internet, particularly mobile broadband, has recently begun to take off. It is estimated that there are around 49 users per 100 inhabitants. The government is aiming to 8% penetration by 2025. To ensure that the target is reached, the government is providing subsidies to mobile operators currently operating in 2G technology to upgrade their network to 3 and above in the area of the country that are underserved by mobile cellular signals. Currently, the United Republic of Tanzania has data center owned by the government and the private sector. Tanzania government, through the Tanzania Telecommunication Corporation, TTCL, owns a state-of-art Tier 3 national data center connected with the national ICT broadband backbone and SEACOM together with EASY international submarine cable that makes it a strategic hub for East Africa market and beyond. In recent years, the government of the United Republic of Tanzania has made various attempts to make more public sector information available and allow citizens to file queries, opinions, complaints, and provide feedback to the public bodies. Notable efforts include the Open Government Data Portal, Tanzania Government Portal, the Central Government Portal, the e-Government Portal, and the publication of reports by the National Audit Office and the Tanzania Extractive Industry Transparency Initiatives are all in board. The government of Tanzania has made several initiatives, including recognizing and building the capacity and skills of ICT professionals, providing foresight and trends in ICT through research in collaboration with ICT stakeholders, and for fostering strategic investment in ICT. The professional registration framework has developed in the country. 864 ICT professionals were recognized and registered by September 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition, in digital skill development framework, we outline priorities area for digital skill development for vendor-based training. Academic and research institution has been developed. This framework, among other things, will provide a guide for university, college to match their ICT curriculums with business industry demands and engage other stakeholders in providing various ICT professional training programs. There are various initiatives that the government, in collaboration with other stakeholders, has taken to promote the use of ICT in education, such that educational institutions are offering online education and training. According to the Commission of Science and Technology, COSTECH, and International Trade Center, ITC, on the tech entrepreneurship ecosystem in Tanzania report, the tech ecosystem in Tanzania comprises institutions that offer two major categories of service: incubation and acceleration. Incubation involves business training, mentoring, technical training, soft skills, and co-working. Acceleration as the category involves funding, prototyping, entrepreneurship events, market information, linkage to the investor, business support, and trade fair, business to business. The tech ecosystem of Tanzania is one of the fastest growing ecosystems in Africa, as indicated in the Global Innovation Index, where her ranking changed from 97 to 88 from 2019 to 2020. In fostering innovation, the government established a software center in Dar es Salaam to promote digital innovation through hosting and coordinating digital acceleration program nationwide. The center supports ICT startups, companies, and entrepreneurs ready for entry to the market stage through initial business promotion and capital investment facilitation in collaboration with banks, venture capitalists, equity shareholder, etc. The main target is to accelerate business innovation, strengthening collaboration among the ICT innovation ecosystem, creating employment opportunity and the diversity of the ICT sector. Ladies and gentlemen, the mitigation of cyber crime. According to ITU Global Cybersecurity Index 2020, Tanzania ranked 37th globally and second in Africa in terms of cybersecurity. To ensure confidence and security in the use of ICTs, the government of the United Republic of Tanzania established Cybersecurity Act 2015 for criminal offenses related to computer system and information and communication technology, to provide for investigation, collection, and use of electronic evidence, and matters that related to addition to implementation of the strategy. National Cybersecurity Strategy 2018-2023 was later developed in the year 2018. The government is now in the process of finalizing the Personal Data Protection Act, which by this year was submitted to the Parliament of Tanzania. These are expected to be enacted before the end of this year, 2022. Existence of Tanzania Computer Emergency Response Team, abbreviated as TSAT, with national responsibility for coordinating response to cybersecurity incidents at the national level. It cooperates with regional and international entities involved in managing cybersecurity incidents. The existence of legal and regulatory framework is essential for country to ensure all activities are done collectively without breaking the general laws and regulations. The government of the United Republic of Tanzania, in providing conducive environment of ICT practice in the country, have enacted laws, ICT policy, guideline, strategy, and framework as well. Distinguished participant, this includes ICT Policy 2016, Electronic and Postal Communication Act, EPOCA, of 2010, Cyber Crime Act 2015, TCR, Tanzania Telecommunication Regulatory Authority Act, UCSAF Act, E-Transaction Act, National Payment System Act, TT Act, E-Government Act 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Tanzania ensure that media produce good content that can be consumed by the society of all levels and follow the accepted national and international standards. It has established regulation on online content, the Electronic and Postal Communication and Online Content 2020, and Broadcasting Regulation, the Electronic and Postal Communication, Radio and Television Broadcasting Content Regulation 2018. The government of Tanzania is a member of several international and regional corporations, such as International Telecommunication Union, ITU, African Telecom Union, ITU, PAP, Afrinic, CRASA, and IACO. The government continues to collaborate with this organization in accelerating the use of ICT in the country through conference meetings and joint programs. This conference provides an opportunity for sustainable development in ICT and infrastructure. It is time to connect the unconnected. Broadband connectivity should be a global priority. We should all work toward that end, the use of benefit of digital technology in all sectors of society and the economy, particularly in building digital economy. On behalf of the government of Tanzania, I reaffirm a total commitment to this endeavor. It is our collective interest and shared aspiration that throughout the discussion of this meeting, positive and practical contribution will be made towards the success of our cooperative efforts. I'm very sure we can turn words into action. And I should pass this greeting from Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of United of Tanzania, who she is committed to make sure that the very conducive environment for investment in the ICT sector in Tanzania are available for all people from across the globe. And we all welcome you all to feel that investing in Tanzania is making the future great for all the world across the ICT sector. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. And I echo your words. The time for words into action is now. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, delegates, we're going to have a small change in our program. We do have some challenges with time, and we acknowledge that. Next up, I'm going to invite Louise Martin, the Estate Living CEO, to come upstairs, and then also Mr. Leon Lee from Huawei, if he can join us on stage, and Juanita Clark will be our witness. So we've got a MOU signing that is going to take place that we would like you all to witness. As you've seen earlier today, we've had some discussion around the importance around property development and getting the right stakeholders aligned to make sure that we can make this happen. So basically what this MOU is about, it's cooperation between us, and it captures the cooperation in terms of fiber pre-provisioning and rapid deployment relating to developers and stakeholders. So we want to see moving forward that we are aligned and that we are in agreement of the objectives that we set out to achieve. So with having said that, we have prepared a document, and we want to have this then officially signed with you as witnessed by Juanita. And we thank Estate Living for taking this step and initiative with us in ensuring that we can deliver the connectivity mechanisms of the future. So I'm just going to open up, and then I will have the relevant parties sign. Louise, if you can just fill that in for us and sign. And then from Huawei side, Mr. Leon Lee. And we have it witnessed by the CEO of the DCA. I think we can give them a big round of applause, and we can congratulate this initiative today. And we're looking forward to building more of these bridges, moving into the future and establishing the importance of fiber and giving it its rightful position within the industry. So if we can get a group picture maybe of all of you together. Do you want to stand there? Join us up stage.
groen, hè? Thanks, Marius. Thank you so much, Marius. Thank you, Huawei, for organizing this and for inviting us. We're honored to be here today. And you, Anita, thank you. I think it's a fantastic event, and I think we need more of this. You know, we need more awareness of what we have to do on fiber and development. And I would like to go through the slide a little bit on this. We created a fiber co a few months ago, incorporating basically the access networks, which is the dark fiber Africa, and the consumer side of the business, which is Vuma. And I want to talk a little bit about Vuma today because the topic is connecting South Africa, and I think that's the key thing that we have to get right. And I think the deputy ministers spoke about it, and the ministers of deputies of some of the other countries spoke about it. It's really critical that we get this right, and I think it's the private sector has to be committed to focusing on the right things. And we agree, you can't just go into the leafy suburbs and to the high LSMs. You have to get the connectivity to the people that need the connectivity. And I think COVID showed that to us. When COVID hit and the pandemic hit the world, it was critical to get connectivity to the homes. People had to work from home. And we saw it. And I think if I look at it, and I look at the two companies that I represent, it's just a pity we didn't have more homes connected. And yes, we started, and it's a huge challenge. And at one stage, we thought, listen, it's impossible to go into these lower LSM areas. And where do you stop? How do you get to the low LSM areas that we could call key? And we didn't have solutions. And I think just through innovation and a fantastic team of people with can-do attitudes, we looked at different options, and we just got those solutions. So yes, we started the company Vumatel, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fiber to the home, the people connectivity side of South Africa. We started only a few years ago, really scaling in 2016, deciding to go from Gauteng into Cape Town. We passed 100,000 homes. And then we built out very fast 300,000 homes in 1 year, which for us was basically impossible from a scale point of view. You know, that's pushing 10, to 20, 30,000 homes a month that we had to pass. Now, if you look at a small little town, a small little metro, 3,000 homes. So you have to do 10 of those a month. And then we scaled up to 800,000, and we got to a point where we ran out of runway basically on the higher LSM areas. We did go into the higher LSM areas because it was for us obviously just more normal to do because it was infrastructure, we could get there, it was a little bit more easy to do. And we had a high LSM because, there's a price linked to it. We started on homes built at 18,000 Rand to pass a home, 18,000 Rand. Today we're doing it at 3,000 Rand a home passed. So we had to look at different options of deploying this. And then in 2020, we sat around the boardroom table the one day and we said, listen guys, how do we get into the lower LSM areas? And we launched the first prepaid platform on fiber in the world. I think there was one country that was close to us. And we decided, well, why can't we do it? Why can't we copy the mobile players and launch prepaid? And we sat there and it was an idea. We had lots of ups and downs and people didn't agree with us. And at the end, we launched it. And suddenly, it just opened up the markets that we have to serve. And that's the markets we have to connect. And I always tell this story. I launched for Vodacom the network. I was the CEO for Vodacom in DRC in 2002. And I can remember we couldn't get fax machines to work ever in Congo. So we skipped technology. So it started with the SMS, GPRS, and then people just started communicating different. We never could get a fax machine to work in the DRC. So we skipped technologies, and we closed that digital gap, that communication gap between the rest of the world and Africa through mobile technologies. And that gap closed, and suddenly Congo opened up. Nobody could work there, and suddenly just people could communicate, and suddenly everybody went there, and development happened. But what we're seeing today, if we do not get broadband connectivity into homes today, that gap will be bigger than the gap we had in the 2000s. And that's the critical thing. And we saw it, one of the previous speakers actually spoke about it. If you look at how many people will have a gig connection 5 years from now versus no connection in Africa, it's going to be a disaster because things are happening faster than we realize. And if we can't get there, we can't close that gap, we will have massive problems from a competitive point of view competing with the rest of the world. So I think that's us. And I think the private sector has to come to the party and say, how do we do it? And I think we're leading it. So Vuma DFA is leading this. And we're getting now competitors following. And that's fantastic because we've got 19 million homes to cover in South Africa. And I think that's what we have to get to. So we launched, we currently passed 1.6 million homes. So I'm chasing to get to 2 million homes passed this financial year. Got 600 schools linked with a gig-free fiber. So every school we pass, we connect it with a gig fiber line. The issue is, what do they do with that gig fiber line? So we're looking at different services. We're talking to our service providers, ISPs, to say, listen, can't we build different solutions on top of this just to get this to work? Because education is super critical. And the way people's going to educate themselves in the next 5 years will radically change from what you see today. And connectivity is the pivoting fundamental factor that will drive that development. So it's a must. And it's not a must in 5 years, it's a must today. We have to make it work. Yes, and we do it with local empowerment, we do it with local SMMEs, so we're doing it with the local communities. But you know who's driving the outcome is actually the community itself. Because the communities, when they realize fiber is coming, and they get this dedicated connection to their house, they actually absolutely drive it. And you can't believe how many people phone me and phone us as we start when the next area is going to be connected, say in Mitchell's Plain. So we covered Mitchell's Plain the first time. So now we covered Soweto. Currently, we cover basically 700,000 homes in the low LSM areas. That's the whole of Soweto. That's the whole of Mitchell's Plain. It's the whole of Soshanguve. It's the whole of Vosloorus. It's Phoenix and Chatsworth. Not with a wireless, highly contended service, with a dedicated service. And we want to see, listen, how can we get into Alexandra? How do we get into Khayelitsha? So we're doing pilots now in Khayelitsha and Alexandra, where we want to give uncapped fiber to people for 100 Rand a month. And guess what? We're looking at the usage today in Mitchell's Plain. It's 400 gigs per household. It's 1.5 times more than a house in Sandton. Why? Because there's 8-10 devices live in that house. So the need and the impact we're making in that house is much, much bigger than we can ever make in a place like a high LSM. So the challenge is, and the challenge is for us this. You know, it's like a water well, you know. Data is always used sparingly. So we're used to data, expensive data, mobile. And it's a fantastic solution, but it's built on a scarce resource. So the only way to make this impact in the community is to create a mechanism where you give data in abundance. And if you do that, then suddenly that true potential of that community will come out, and that development will happen. And the kids will study differently, and the people will work differently. So Harambee was here. I mean, we work with them. For the first time ever, we built a call center in Mitchell's Plain. Why? Because of connectivity. So now people don't have to travel kilometers or into different towns or metros to go and work. They can actually do it very close from their community. And I think that's the thing, is to create this abundance is absolutely super critical. So all the packages should be uncapped. So, and that's very difficult to do on a mobile network. But there's different options that we have to do. So I just want to say, so we did it on 2 technologies. We launched GPON on the one side. We partnered with Huawei. And I think it's very critical that you partner with people that are innovative, that are forward-looking, because we've got price pressures. So the issue is you have to do this at a cost-efficient way so you can get into the lower tiers of the segments that you want to get to. So Huawei was on the one side, and then we launched a Swiss GPON area technology as well, which is a super dedicated technology that you get specific throughputs on. But as we evolved into going into the different homes, we moved to a more structured GPON technology, and Huawei was one of our partners there, and I believe it's a good partner because suddenly scale is critical. Scale, cost, and affordability into the house is how it works. And then you need big funding. You need billions of rands to put into the networks. So we put 6 billion, over the last 2 years, 6.5 billion rand goes into the networks, into the ground. So you need funding, and I think that's where our big shareholders gave us the ability to actually cater for that. And that's it. And the rest is a can-do attitude, understand the market, and make sure we actually make that difference. So yes, we've got the two networks. We've got DFA on the one side, which is this phenomenal first company in South Africa from a fiber point of view that created a dark fiber solution, meaning you take a dark fiber and you can do anything you want on that. But then we obviously lit some of those services, and we've got shared services on top of it. And currently we've got an access network with 13,800 kilometers covered across South Africa. A phenomenal play. And in a way, we were very lucky when CIVH bought into us. We created this mechanism where we got the access network on the one side, and we got this amazing Vuma engine connecting the people on the other side. And that's where we make the differentiation. So fiber to the market leading, 30,000 kilometers of fiber, and we got 1.6 million homes passed at this point. But remember, there's 19.6 million homes in South Africa. So we're not close to what we actually have to achieve as an industry. And this is what we're sitting with. So we've got two problems. The one problem is, how do we stay competitive with the rest of the world? Critical. Okay? Because that thing, if we don't do that, we'll just be further behind. If we wait another 4 years for things to happen, it's not going to happen, because we will fall behind. Then we got the digital divide. And this is exactly what digital divide is. On the one side, you've got like a high LSM leafy suburb. On the other side, you've got density. You've got people, some of them no running water, very little electricity. So how do we cater for this? And this is where we have to get to. So 2.2 million homes in the core markets in South Africa. That's income of more than 30,000 in a month in a house. That's how we define it. And we defined it. And then the middle is 4.8 million homes sitting in the Mitchell's Plain type of markets where it's a formal dwelling, but household income is between 30,000 and 5,000 in a month. And then you've got the key areas, which is your informal settlements. And that's people that live what we can pick up from statistics and what's published under 5,000 a month. But there's a huge informal economy there. And we don't know how big that cash economy is, but the challenge is, how do we give a solution into those high dense markets that makes sense? And that means collections, service, customer experience, maintenance. How do you do it? And that's where we sit today. But I believe with innovative ways and people doing the right things, I think we are getting to the point where we can make that difference. And I sat in a lot of meetings in a lot of countries. Actually worked in Tanzania as well for 6 years. So I lived in Dar es Salaam for 6 years. But a lot of times we go and we look at that 9.7 million homes, and then we give them a solution that's highly contended, or we give them a solution that from a quality point of view just doesn't make sense. So it's very critical that actually it should be a reverse. Your 9.7 homes, because of the little disposable income you have, should be much better from a quality and a customer experience point of view than the people that can afford it on the 2.2 million homes, because they've got different options. And the issue is, how do we balance that in time? And I think those are the challenges that we sit with. But I think it's amazing. I mean, we're looking at the two businesses. So we got the fiber to the home. We see now with the 5G, the spectrum that was launched by the government, and that the mobile operators are actually deploying at this point. Listen, this is going to explode from a point of view where you're going to have to get fiber to the tower. And one of the previous speakers also online spoke about it. It's critical that we get fiber to every site. It's critical that we look at the 5G densification with fiber, because your throughputs will be so immense in time that you can't go without that. So what you're seeing is all these sea cables landing in South Africa. We don't have enough fiber to transmit and to transport that. So what are we going to do with all that data coming in? So we even got the over-the-top people now coming to us, the Facebooks of the world and the Amazons, and saying to us, listen, we'll build your networks. Just make sure we get the end users online, and then we'll work on a payment platform, because we are lacking behind on fiber deployment and access. So for me, I see a big play in fiber to the tower, fiber to the site, fiber to the small cell on 5G. Then I'm seeing fiber to the business. Guys, we're only 50% of our businesses today, of the 500,000 businesses in South Africa, only 50%, a little bit under 50%, has connectivity like us. They've got different solutions. They've still got ADSL and copper and different wireless solutions. But the options is, if you want to compete with the rest of the world, that has to change. But you must also remember businesses are changing. The way we're going to do business is totally going to change. Not just because of COVID, because of what's happening in the world. The next entrepreneur, the next data analyst, the next most innovative person in South Africa will not come from here, that will come from either Khayelitsha or from an Alex. I mean, that's where the people are. And it's just the access to absolutely get this onto the front foot. And I think that's what we as private sector have to do. And I think we're doing it. So I'm very excited. The rest is just fiber to the home. I think there's still 13 million homes that we haven't even passed. Okay, it's different technologies. It's very difficult. But we can get there. And I think the solutions are very close to being deployed, that we can get a 100 rand fiber product uncapped to people, maybe a little bit contended, but still a 20 meg service up and down, or 20 meg service down and 10 up maybe. You know, so we must look at that. So just overview of the fiber networks. I think I don't want to touch too much on that. I think the businesses are going into a single layer infrastructure fiber network. So you're seeing the single integrated fiber networks happening. There we see really DFA, the dark fiber side on the core network access layers playing a big role. And then you're seeing on the access network, on the core network, and then on the access network, you're seeing DFA coming in. You're seeing Conduct, which is our business leg, ex-business leg. You're seeing Eurotel. I mean, you're looking at Eurotel today. Eurotel connects nearly 500 little secondary cities across South Africa. But the issue with them is, it's so expensive to get backhaul to those towns, you can't really launch a solution that makes sense. But these guys are far ahead of the curve connecting these secondary cities, because suddenly they're going into these little towns that could never make financial sense because of this high backhaul costs and the volume of houses in those areas. But today, we have got the backhaul, and we've got the areas around that with our reach solutions and our key solutions that suddenly just make sense. And that's how the connectivity works. It's like a tsunami just going through the country. And I'm very excited about this. And I think the impact that we will make and the impact that we can make is absolutely phenomenal. And I think really, I always say to the people, I think it's our responsibilities. The people in the fiber space, the people in the supplier and equipment space, people coming up with those new solutions. It's our responsibility to make this happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Otherwise, we'll stand here 5 years from now and we'll have a connectivity rate of 30 or 40%, which is not good enough because you're missing the whole point. So creating opportunities beyond fiber, I think this is where we are today. It's a pity we're not further on this, but 1.6 million homes. We've got 60,000 people on prepaid. We got 700,000 people. I'm trying to get to 1 million homes on prepaid and on low LSMs. I've got 30,000 kilometers of assets in the network. I've got 600 schools. And it's not good enough, 600 schools, but it's 600 schools. It's got 1 gig connection. And I just think, we're very proud of this. I think there's a lot of money that has to go into this. You need strong shareholders. You need strong partnerships. You need technology that makes sense. And I think you make an impact. So I want to show you quickly just a little video.
One day I'm going to create a legacy that my children can be proud of.
I had no idea that my whole entire life was going to change the way it did.
Vuma Fiber Reach has transformed my life. As an entrepreneur, I don't have to panic whether I have internet access or not. I've got internet 24/7, 365.
Actually, Vuma Fiber Reach has changed my life because I can connect. It's unlimited data. It's flowing. I use the Vuma Fiber Reach to connect in the church services, meetings, and the kids, they can also do their homeworks. We also connect for YouTube and everything.
It can be business as usual. Former Model C schools whereby they are able to connect with their kids through internet. So at least e-learning will assist the learners. We've seen how even the slow learners, they can learn faster.
to a great new start for our children and youth football. Thank you all.
Heartfelt thank you to Vuma for the kind donation. We will forever be grateful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dietlof, thank you very, very much. I have to say, I've been in the industry for 30 years. I built my first fiber networks in the early 90s with Telkom, and I'm inspired. And congratulations to Vuma. Solutions for Africa, from Africa. Thank you. Some of you might have noticed that I've brought some bags on board. We're going to do a quick lucky draw session. I'm going to ask the VP of the Southern Africa region, Mr. Frank Young, to join me on stage. Can we just have security accompany my colleague? I don't want people to... Thanks, Leslie. Right, so I hope you're all ready for this. This is part one of more to follow. The rules are, if you're in the room and I call your name, you will receive a gift. So we're going to start right up and see who do we have first. If you snooze, you lose. If you're not here, who wants to be a judge? Sorry, what was the? Yeah, I'll shake the box. We'll get to that. First, I've got. Is it Gook Sema from MICT SETA? Oh yeah! Yippee! Right. So we will present you with.
Yes, it's
Cool. One happy customer. Shake the box. Okay, sorry. All right, let's. I'll go a bit deeper. Is that okay? Because I know some people were very early. Next up, we have Stephen Humtlat-Leng from UBMC. Going. 3 times. Okay, we've got a lawyer in the crowd. Stephen Humtlat-Leng, sorry about my pronunciation, from UBMC. Stephen, we're reaching out to you. All right, okay, sorry about that, Stephen. So let's see, next. We have Sunil from OpenServe. Where is Sunil? Oh yeah, there. That's a familiar face. Sunil will do some of our presentations a little bit later on as well. Congratulations, Sunil. Next we have Kwanele Makaleni from SB Connect Africa. Oh yeah, there we've got a winner. I'm going to line them up now. Let me go deep. Phil Molefe, Ikasa. Oh, I see a lot of familiar faces today. Congratulations, Phil. You go, enjoy. Next up, Livingston from the Department of the Premier. Livingston. Oh, yeah. There he comes. I want to see those smiles, eh? I want to see those smiles. That's it. Abdul from the IDC. Abdul, yes. How many do we have? It's an early Christmas. We still have a few more to go. Martin Ferreira, VH Fiber. Martin Ferreira, VH Fiber. Sorry about that, dude. Martin Ferreira, sorry. Umlungisi Mtumunye DCDT. And we have another winner. Three. If Mini Centec. If Mini Centec. Last call for F Mini Centec. Hey, if they knew what they're missing. Johan Kleinhans, VH Fiber Optics. Johan, oh man. Cool. Andries Matthijssen, Telkom. Andries Matthijssen, Telkom. Yes, Andries. There we go. And then the last one for this session. Let's see who that would be. Sipu Makalema, DCA. Sipu, where are you, my man? Sipu? Is he running, taking photos? Oh man, my heart breaks. We have to unfortunately abide by the rules. Charles Ayer, consultant. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Ayer, Charles Ayer. There we go. Oh, well done. All right, ladies and gents, this is not the last round, so stick around because the next session is going to be even more exciting. All right, thank you, sir. Right, so I'm going to leave this box here in full view so that you see there's no tampering for the next session that's going to take place. So we're going to move on to our next speaker, representing for the WBBA, Mr. Sunil PR Lal will be the presenter in the next session. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you, Marius. In preparing for my presentation, I actually got a free gift as well, so thank you for that. So good afternoon to the Honorable Deputy Minister, to ministers from other countries that have come through, dignitaries from other countries, industry leaders. Today, I stand in front of you with a different cap, not my cap as one of the executives in OpenServe, but my cap as a representative of the World Broadband Association. Let's see if I can get this to work. Before I do that, I want to thank Dr. Andile Nkraba, Juanita Clark, the Digital Council of Africa for giving us this platform to introduce the World Broadband Association to South Africa and to introduce the World Broadband Association to Africa as a continent. So what do we do? The World Broadband Association traces its origination to a circular that was out by the ITU in 2020, which called for the industry-wide platform for the fixed broadband stakeholders. And in response to this call, some founding members, including Huawei, Nokia, Openreach as part of British Telecom, and China Telecom convened their inauguration event online in 2021. And I was part of that event together with about 500 other participants. And subsequently, OpenServe has joined the World Broadband Association, and I represent OpenServe on that association. About a year after its inauguration, the World Broadband Association is progressing with its mission to act as the shared platform to maximize social, environmental, and economic benefits for all. Mr. Zhao Haolin, the Secretary General of the ITU, says that the World Broadband Association is positioned as the GSMA of fixed broadband connectivity. Currently, we have 9 members, and you see them on screen. Openreach, which is a division of British Telecom. We have Swiss Telecom. We have Telecom Algerie, which is Algeria. We have OpenServe Pty Limited. There's China Telecom, Chorus from New Zealand, Nokia and Huawei as OEMs, and Omdia. And we have an observer as well, the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, and that's currently the World Broadband Association. So just to position the WBBA, we have the National Broadband Policy and the ITU governing these policies. Then you have standards authorities like ETSI, like the World Broadband Forum. And then you have a space in the industry for industry development and getting industry consensus. And that's really where the World Broadband Association fits in. It brings together operators, it brings together vendors, governments, different verticals, over-the-top players, standards bodies, and device manufacturers. Getting back to what we as the World Broadband Association do, there's 3 working groups. The first is the Generational Roadmap Working Group. The second is a case studies on industry success factors. And the third is a Sustainability Working Group. So the purpose of Working Group 1, which is a working group that I'm an active member on, is to create an independent broadband network roadmap reflecting the requirements of the future services and applications of 2030 and beyond. The roadmap will take into account the needs of both developed and emerging economies, allowing the influence of the development of gigabit societies around the world. Members of this working group is China Telecom, Chorus, Nokia, Huawei, and OpenServe. It also collaborates with industry partners like ETSI and the Broadband Forum. With these working groups, we aim to address 6 major challenges that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. And one of the challenges that was very widely spoken about this morning, addressing the inequality of broadband access. According to the ITU, there's about 3.6 billion people on the 3.6 billion people around the world that still don't have connectivity or don't use the internet or remain unconnected. And the global internet popularization only sits at 50%. If you look at what the pandemic has done to us in the last 3 years, and the countries that have the least amount of connectivity or sitting without any connectivity are still facing mounting pressures on its recovery from the pandemic. You would have heard from Doreen this morning that only 33% of Africa uses the internet. To put that 33% into perspective, there's just over 700 million people in Africa that don't have internet connectivity. And we're hoping that through the World Broadband Association, through industry bodies like the Digital Council of Africa, we can address some of these challenges. In terms of joining the World Broadband Association, my presentation will be circulated, and there's a link on there for members to join and become members of the World Broadband Association. One of the benefits is enhancing your company profile, a bit of a selfish benefit, but it is a benefit of joining the World Broadband Association. It also gives you business opportunities, but more importantly, being a leader in the industry, contributing to facilitated projects and working groups with all stakeholders to convey messages to the broadband ecosystem. Some of the activities of the World Broadband Association is to contribute to research, a lot of white papers being published, to speak at bespoke events. And I'll show you some of the events that's taking place in Bangkok and in Amsterdam later. To develop new business cases. And we heard lots of industry leaders speaking today about funding for the deployment of fiber and how we develop these business cases. Dietlof really spoke about getting fiber connectivity to rural areas, a really big focus from the minister this morning as well, and how we get rural communities connected. And then more importantly, learn and communicate and cooperate with members of the World Broadband Association. So to bring this closer to us, to South Africa, to Africa, You know, we heard about the huge unemployment this morning in South Africa, 30% unemployment. A more staggering stat is 70% of unemployment sitting with youth in South Africa. We heard Dr. Andile Nkaba this morning talking passionately about school connectivity. We heard the Deputy Minister advocate digital inclusion. And the people in this convention, the representatives of government, industry leaders, the OEMs that we have present here, the Digital Council of Africa, and associations like the World Broadband Association can collectively address this challenge. Let's quickly look at some of the internet usage stats. I don't have a pointer on me, but let's look at the middle of the screen where you see Africa. The dark blue, I'm not sure if you can see the colors at the bottom, but it ranges from 0% to 100%, with white being 0 and dark blue being 100% connectivity. And let's look at Africa. You know, tomorrow I'll be talking about all the Google cables, all the other undersea cables landing on our coastline. And yet, as Dietlof earlier mentioned, we're sitting with all this capacity, terabytes of capacity, petabytes of capacity on our coastline, yet we can't take that capacity into Africa and get it distributed on this continent. To put that into reality, or just maybe to show it graphically, let's look at some of the first world countries on the top of the slide. You've got United Kingdom, you've got the United States, you've got Austria and the European Union sitting all above 80% of their population using the internet. The world average, like I mentioned earlier, and like Doreen mentioned, is about 50% of the users using the internet. We're sitting here at the Digital Council of Africa conference today, sitting in just over 20% connectivity across the African continent. Really sad, and we're hoping that, like I said, the people at this convention can put their heads together, both public sector, private sector, and try and get the unconnected connected. Lastly, as part of my 10 minutes, I want to announce the 2 events that's taking place later this year. The first one on the 19th of October in Amsterdam, which is the WBBA annual event, the first face-to-face event since we were formed during the pandemic, and the second event in Bangkok on the 28th of October. The details of these events are on the WBBA website, as well as my presentation that will be circulated. Thank you to the Digital Council for giving us these 10 minutes to kind of promote the WBBA. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sunil, for those insights. I'm just going to make a quick mention. The people that will be part of the panel discussion, you are welcome to go and get mic'd up, so to speak. Our next speaker, I'm privileged to announce, is the General Manager, Mr. David Matu, from the National Construction Authority from Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Ministers from both South Africa and also Tanzania, the senior leadership of the council that has convened us here today, the leadership of Huawei, who are our hosts for this evening, colleague presenters and speakers, and the panel that will be following my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. In Kenya and also in Tanzania, we say jambo. So I would like to say jambo. Jambo is equivalent to hello. Now, my name is David Mathu, as rightly captured. I'm the General Manager for National Construction Authority, and I'm here to represent this great institution in my country, that is in Kenya. And we have quite a number of Kenyans here today. But I want to single out 2 of my colleagues who are part of the delegation from the National Construction Authority. We have Isabella, who is an architect, and then we have Maurice, who is an ICT officer. Now, the challenge I find myself in, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm speaking to tech guys or tech people. Myself, I went to the School of Architecture, that is within the built environment, and specialize in cost engineering. But then again, I have a responsibility to stand in front of giants in tech. But nonetheless, I'll still proceed with my presentation. Now, National Construction Authority, ladies and gentlemen, is a state agency and established under an act of parliament. This is an act of 2011. We call it Act number 41. The main rationale for this act is to bring together an institution in the country that would oversee the construction industry and coordinate its development. Under the said act, ladies and gentlemen, we have several functions listed under Section 5 of that particular act, but we summarize the functions of this great institution so that I can create a nexus between what we are doing here today and the mandate of this institution. We coalesce the several functions under Section 5 into 3 major undertakings of the authority. And I will be discussing those 3 areas of intervention. Area 1 of intervention is registration and compliance. And what we are saying is that we have several players in the construction industry. Some of them are in electrical, structured cabling, telecommunication. Others would be in building construction. Some would be under road construction. Others would be underwater construction. But for you to practice in Kenya, in any of these areas, you need to have a license from the government. And the institution that gives you the license is the National Construction Authority. And we register various players, especially the structured cabling guys, perhaps, and telecommunication players. We have to issue you with a license. We call those ones specialized license, which falls in classification between NCA 1 and NCA 8. NCA 8 is the smallest, and NCA 1 is the highest. For foreign-owned investments in Kenya, you can only get an NCA 1 license. Therefore, for those who are practicing here or in other countries, if at all you'd like to venture into the Kenyan market and you need a license for you to be a player as a contractor in one of the areas specialized that we are discussing here, you'll need to be given a license by NCA. Again, here we have discussed the role of data. Another important registration that National Construction Authority does on behalf of the government is registration of all the projects that are being undertaken by both the public and the private sector. So if the Ministry of Road and Infrastructure is constructing any roads, that project is registered under our systems, which are all online. Actually, our services are all online. For those who are building homes, again, also all those projects are registered in our system. And therefore, we provide a single point of data for government, one, to appreciate how many home ownership or infrastructure projects are being created in the economy, and again, also for those who would like to get that data for purposes of business decisions. So all that data is provided for by the National Construction Authority. Now, allow me to also mention the issue of capacity building. And here, I want to single out Huawei, because we have a lot of young people trained in this area of telecommunication. In the morning here, we had a young lady presenting her experience from training. In Nairobi, we are already partnering with Huawei to upskill the young graduates who are leaving technical vocational education training facilities, and they are already working in the industry. We trace them in the construction sites, and we give them upskilling programs through the partnership we are having with Huawei. Our officers are also trained, and therefore the Department of Capacity Building is benefiting greatly also from the partnership with Huawei. It would be my prayer also for the several companies that have been mentioned here. One of the things we can do for our mother continent is to ensure that all these companies that are making presentations here, they find it within their willingness to train the young people who are leaving the market, and I think that way then we can create a very competitive workforce in Africa. Now, another area that is very important is in research and advisory services. We have created what we call the NACRA. NACRA is the National Construction Research Agenda, which clearly has demarcated the area of telecommunication as an important research priority for the country for the next 5 years. Therefore, all the universities in Kenya, all the research institutions, all the research individuals, research persons, focusing on any area in construction are geared towards pursuing NACRA, and NACRA prioritize telecommunication. Now, we want to just share briefly, as I come to concluding my 10 minutes allocated to us, I want to mention, single out, I may not even follow these slides, two very important things that I believe players present here today can try to adopt. Kenya, when we are implementing construction projects, we have discussed home ownership here. When we are implementing building facilities, when we are implementing the agenda of the government, the affordable housing, we have to apply ourselves to set standards. The standards that are currently in application in Kenya, the building code or the governing building regulations, they have been greatly outdated. For many years, since 1968, we have been using this particular building code. Until some 2 years ago, when we said as an institution and working on behalf of our mother ministry, we shall work together with the stakeholders and revise the current outdated building codes. And we have formulated a building code that is currently in Parliament for the final stages of approval that prioritizes telecommunication, prioritizes digitization of homes, and this creates a very good opportunity for innovators in these digital conversations that we're having. Previously, the building code existing, the outdated one, has been more about prescription. It is not about performance. But now we are saying to create opportunities for all of us and also to support the innovators who have very good ideas on how we can make our homes more comfortable and more livable, then there's a need for us to come up with a new building code. I believe that is something that can be adopted by other governments across Africa, and that can provide a very good platform for both the government and also the private sector. Because all these ideas you have, in one way or another, they must find favorable government policies, procedures, laws and regulations available so that we can uptake the kind of proposals that we're having here today. Another very important thing that the institution has done, Kenya has operated like many other African countries today without a construction industry policy. We have since formulated a construction industry policy which has 8 thematic areas, all the way from construction materials, capacity building, and there's one particular thematic area that also Huawei and other players in the digital environment has contributed to, and that is a thematic area under ICT. That construction industry policy is well aligned to also the ICT policy under the Ministry of ICT and Innovation in our country. So that we are saying we are not working in silos. One ministry, where I come from, transport, public works, housing, we have formulated that policy under National Construction Authority and aligned it to the provisions of the policy under the Ministry of ICT. We believe by so doing, then we are creating platforms where we could digitize the construction industry and also create opportunities for all of us. What has it taken us? It has taken us close collaboration with the industry, players at the universities, the industry, and several other people that we find having an interest in the construction industry. I therefore would like to appeal to all of us attending this very important summit to entrench our collaborations, inter-organizations, and of course within organizations and across the countries as we move forward toward the digitization that we require and that we want in Africa. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you very much for inviting us, and thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Matu. Again, I think we need to congratulate Kenya for what they have achieved, the initiatives they've taken, the collaboration, and working towards, again, that common objective that ultimately allows for quick and efficient connectivity. Thank you for that. Our next item is going to be our panel discussion, which will be led by Mr. Adam Lane, who is our Huawei Deputy CEO for Government Affairs Kenya. If we can have the panel participants, please join us on stage. Thank you. Go. Give me that. You can go. I'm gonna. Not yet.
Which ones are not effective?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go through the names.
Testing.
Are you okay?
Did I choose one of those that falls apart?
Hopefully that's ending on. Okay, good.
Are you good there? Hi.
Okay. Mr. Konate, yes, thank you very much. Yes, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. As we get closer to the time, I think they already have cocktails outside, but we have prizes inside. They can see that, and I think.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, so if you, I think you'll stay here another 20, 25 minutes. See how many prizes there are still to give at the end of the lucky draw, and then the music and cocktails can wait. We're very lucky here to have 5 people here. You've already heard from a couple of people already. They won't need to introduce themselves, I think, but the others can introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll go into a few quick questions and answers. So maybe if I can start with those who've not introduced themselves yet. Mr. Kitui?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Kitui Daniel. I'm a standards developer in the electrotechnical sector with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kukwano?
Sure. I am Kukwano Chaba. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at the South African Local Government Association.
Okay. And I think Louise, if you can introduce yourself earlier.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's difficult to compete with the cocktails, and I'm sure we're all edging to get one soon. My name's Louise Martin. I am the CEO of a company called Estate Living. We work with residential communities, mixed-use developments, right through the property life cycle, all the way to your end user, homeowners, residents, investors. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Sunil, maybe your other job title?
Yeah, I've got lots of job titles. Thank you, Adam. So my name is Sunil Pyarlal. I'm the executive for network architecture and modeling in OpenServe. And I'm hoping to share some of our experiences on how we can improve connectivity in South Africa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay, maybe my first question, if I can ask Mr. Konate. You gave a very good introduction earlier to what the Ivory Coast has been doing or has started on the journey, I suppose, towards 50,000 homes. And you had an interesting diagram where you talked about the targets that you have set, urban areas and rural areas. Maybe you can talk a bit more about those targets, how you came up with them, what your suggestions are for other countries around having the broadband targets.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what we have in terms of target, like I said during my presentation, we're leveraging on what the government has promised to deliver in terms of number of households. This is one. At the FBB side, like I presented, our current penetration rate is only 5%. We are expecting to take it at 30 by 2025. Obviously, we have focused on several areas. We got the big cities like Abidjan and the capital of the regional districts. We got I would say, the mid-sized cities and the village. For each of these areas, we have a strategic operational goals we have to meet based on our solution. But what we said in terms of FBB, we're talking about FBB in big cities, and now this is about fiber to home and fiber to enterprise. But in terms of population coverage, we are leveraging on the expansion of the mobile broadband as well. And there are very strong commitments in terms of target for 3, 4, and 5G we're going to launch by next year. Those are really, it's come with our new national transformation, digital transformation strategy, which has been adopted last year, December, by the government. This is something we can elaborate on it, but we got very strategic and strong commitment for each of these areas, urban, rural, and the big and village as well.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Chaba, you work a lot with the local governments, local government entities, I suppose, across the country. What do you feel are the biggest challenges then that you face, and how are you trying to work with the local municipalities to overcome some of those on fiber rollout?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that was actually identified as far as 2016 was where there could be some sort of a market failure, where some of the operators are focusing on urban areas, because it does make business sense, but it does leave the rural municipalities and some of the semi-rural municipalities left in the right in the back, right? And what the local government decided was to really adopt broadband as a utility, just like electricity, just like water, where municipalities as local government could actually wholesale and participate in the value chain of providing connectivity. So it was also in response to that challenge. But at the same time, there has been less direction in terms of how we can approach it generally as local government, because there isn't any funding as well for local government to participate in that value chain, except if you're a metropolitan city like City of Cape Town that can take advantage of the density of the customers that exist. So in response to those challenges, as I said, we've now really developed a business model that can be adopted by municipalities to directly participate in the provision of fiber and connectivity to their residents, but also participating with the private sector. So looking at the right PPP frameworks as well, especially, as I said, in the more neglected areas. One other response that we did was through a case study that we could share as well. One municipality called Saldanha, which has actually done that kind of work, where they've partnered with operators to really develop the infrastructure and roll out that infrastructure, co-fund that infrastructure, and then as the municipality itself start providing that connectivity, like any other private party would, to the home. So when you get your bill at the end of the month, you get your bill for your water, for your electricity, for your rates, but also for internet connectivity. Vice versa, City of Cape Town, they would then spend more money in having their own infrastructure for broadband, but then make it an open access and for private participants to also participate in that space by sort of leasing that infrastructure as well. So not only do we see the problems in terms of the lack of parity between the more urban and the less urban municipalities, but we also responded in making sure that we actually adopt that connectivity as a utility as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I can come to Louise. When you look at the perspective from the developers' side, what are they facing? What are the challenges that they face? And then why are they incentivized, or how do they overcome some of those challenges to ensure that they install the infrastructure or work with partners on installing infrastructure?
I think from a property developer perspective, we're answering to the client's needs. So what are the buyers looking for? And as you know, buyers see properties that have a sort of pre-provision of fiber or fiber infrastructure as more valuable. And it actually extends slightly beyond fiber. I mean, your conference next door is talking about renewable and sustainable energy that sort of couples with the kind of infrastructure that's required. So these properties are viewed as more favorable. So from a development perspective, you need to ask yourself, should the fiber infrastructure, the pre-provision for fiber be there from design phase? Is it something that the telcos and the developers can work together around? And then, of course, that always brings up the question, who pays for what? But definitely the ducting needs to go in, there needs to be provision. I think from a built environment where existing estates are looking for fiber infrastructure, where you're retrofitting, in that case, I think for a lot of the telcos, they struggle with access, so there needs to be a discussion around access. Of course, it's driven by government and government policy. And we've heard across the morning and today about the number of countries that have worked collectively with government, with the construction industry, with the telcos and the developers, and have successfully rolled out infrastructure and have increased the amount of coverage and access to coverage. I think these are key drivers when you look at the fiber. But again, it's driven by the consumer, by the need of uptake. And I think this is also a challenge, for a lot of the telcos, they come into the area, but you need the customer to uptake the communication. So their education, information, access, these are the kind of key drivers that sit in that space.
Thank you. Maybe I can come to Daniel. I think everyone here understands that the construction industry is quite a complicated ecosystem in terms of building houses and other kinds of buildings, from the investors through to the developers and the tenants and the landlords and others in the ecosystem and contractors. What's the kind of role of standards in general in these kind of ecosystems, and how do they help? I think there's a fiber standard that KEBS has had for several years and has been updating.
Yes. First of all, the standards in any scenario provide a common reference for all players to reference and work together. So a standard is developed by the stakeholders, cross-sectional stakeholders, all the players in any particular field. For example, the fiber industry. In Kenya now we've had a standard since 2009, KS 1882 Part 1. This is on code of practice for fiber to the building. So 2009 was a long time ago. Technology has moved a lot. So this standard has been undergoing revision, and right now it's in public review, ending 7th of October. So you can access that on our website, www.kebs.org, to review what all the stakeholders in the industry have deemed fit to review and update the requirements. So these requirements are set by the industry players themselves. In Kenya, these are composed of the players in the industry, the original equipment manufacturers, the installation experts, government regulatory bodies. My colleague has just been here from the NCA. So what they do is they all sit together and develop the requirements and all the requirements that will go into the standard. Therefore, all of them at any one point in time have a common reference. One, because they developed it. Two, because, and these requirements are set by themselves to guarantee performance, safety to the consumers, and interoperability of the equipment they will use, because we understand they're all coming from different point of view of manufacturing excellence and everything, such that now, during operation, they will be, they know what they said, and therefore they have that drive to uphold that. So these standards are set by ourselves, the industry players, the experts, who now will be driven to comply to the same. Therefore, upholding very high standards of performance to the end user, the common end user.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe that the standard will be referenced, hopefully, in the new building code. So actually, that from a regulatory perspective, then it points towards where you can get the detailed instructions and how to comply with the regulatory code, which I think is very important and a useful link between the policy side, the legal side, and then the standard side as well. Sunil, we've heard a lot, I think, earlier from different people, from Huawei and other operators around some of these challenges.
Yeah.
What have you found, and what kind of new ideas do you have in terms of solving some of the challenges rolling out fiber? You said you have over 150,000 kilometers of fiber?
Yeah, so let me first put South Africa in context. Yeah, the number you're looking for is about 170,000 kilometers of fiber that OpenServe alone has, and then you've got other fiber network operators in the industry. But if you look at where we stand with fiber to the home in South Africa, we have anything between 1.9 million and 3.1 million homes that we've passed, depending whether you count overbuild or not. And with a population in South Africa of just over 60 million living in just under 20 million homes, that equates to about a 20 to 25% homes passed. So from a fiber to the home pass statistic, that actually looks quite good. The problem with this statistic is that this land grab has taken place in metropolitan areas. and leaving the typical suburban and rural areas without connectivity. And the problem that fiber network operators have with rolling out fiber, and these communities have, is that this digital divide continues to grow more and more, and becomes more and more difficult to roll out fiber. And as this rollout lessens in these rural communities, it makes it difficult for these communities to be part of the fourth industrial revolution, or to even participate in the digital transformation that they so badly need to grow their businesses. Now, we heard throughout today that government is committed to providing the necessary high bandwidth, low latency connectivity to the rural communities. We also see the willingness of fiber network operators. We have up to 82 fiber network operators in South Africa. We see their willingness to go out and provide this connectivity. But the single biggest impediment to providing fiber connectivity is the Wayleave application in South Africa. A Wayleave application is applying for permission to trench and identifying existing infrastructure. And a few years ago, that was free. It was an application process. We've seen in KZN that free has gone to 50,000 Rand per application. We're also seeing some municipalities asking for up to 250,000 Rand per Wayleave application. And that is a huge impediment. And I know that government has recently promulgated a white paper for public comment on Wayleaves, and we're hoping that that will give us consistency across the country. Adam, the second biggest impediment is local forums, which is something that has become quite common in South Africa, especially in the Eastern Cape and KZN. And a lot of fiber network operators are pulling away because that pushes up the cost to deploy fiber in these communities. And you would have heard people speak today talking about providing low-cost connectivity to these communities. It's difficult to provide low-cost community when you're going to add all of these other costs in there. So we're hoping that we can work with government and try and overcome at least the Wayleave application process so it allows all operators to be able to roll out fiber. And secondly, assist us with these local forums, in which case, in many cases are actually illegal. So if we can get government and the government departments working together to help fiber network operators, I think that'll help us roll out fiber in this country much, much faster.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's a typical problem where the easiest homes and the quickest and cheapest and the biggest ROI are passed quickest and
that's correct.
Achieved first, and then it becomes almost uneconomical then to start connecting the others.
Absolutely, it's not only economical. We talked a lot today about the digital divide across the world. We talk a lot about the digital divide in South Africa, and that digital divide is going to get bigger and bigger if we cannot roll out some form of connectivity to the rural and suburban areas.
And Mr. Chaba, I think earlier there was a discussion about the presidential initiative. Is it called Vulindela? Addressing some of these issues, I think, around right-of-way and wayleaves and things. How has that been taken by your local governments across the country?
Yeah. No, we as SALGA were actually part and parcel of that task team to respond to that challenge of inconsistencies in wayleave applications across municipalities. And that is why we made that input into that model, single bylaw, standard bylaw across the board, again, for predictability, for transparency across municipalities. But also, we also took some concerns of municipalities. So it is obviously not a one-way concern kind of conversation. Because also when some of the trenches have been dug in the municipalities, sometimes they're left damaged. And municipalities have left with the cost of fixing some of the work that's been done. So both the concerns from both sides have also been taken into account. And a great inclusion into this model bylaw as well as that it does foster also opportunities for PPPs. So let's co-build, let's share the risk as well. But also see how then it's not about an us and them, right? Ultimately, we also want to see access to telecommunications much more equal across both poor areas, but also in more affluent areas, which is another element that is also pushed, that some of the requirements for being given those wayleaves may be allocate 10-15% of some of your infrastructure to the less developed areas as well, and not just focus only on the much more richer suburbs, but also some of the townships as well, so that we also provide the fiber to the home, not just those free Wi-Fi spots in the townships, but really also allowing that there's infrastructure into the homes as well. So we are actually trying to bring that collaboration between both the private sector, but also the municipalities as well.
And Mr. Kanate, I think you're also trying to address similar issues in the Ivory Coast around the wayleave issue, cooperation between maybe the power companies and the operators. How have they taken these issues? How much success do you think you'll have?
Yeah, I think in terms of the joint working group, this is part of the solution. And we discuss with everyone. It's a really open discussion. When we started with the stakeholders, we called everyone around the table. Even the utilities like electricity, everyone, they were there. In Côte d'Ivoire, the scheme is, I would say, a bit different. So far, what we've seen were discussions between privates with utilities. Now what we're trying to do, to see as part of a government initiative, if we can come up with a new initiative, including these people, so they can provide a solution to accelerate what we're trying to reach in terms of penetration rate enhancement. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Daniel, you mentioned about the stakeholder engagement as being critical for standards development. You have like a process you follow to engage stakeholders. Yes. I don't know how many businesses here, maybe I can ask, how many people in the room have ever participated in a standard setting, individuals in this room, not your business? How many of you have joined any standards entity, whether it's a national level or the international level? Anybody raise their hand? I see 3, 4, 5. Not bad. About 7 or 8 hands. Yes, of course. Mr. Konate. About a quarter maybe of the people, or a bit less. What do you see the challenges then? Enough stakeholders getting involved in setting these standards?
Yes. In Kenya, previously up to 2019, we used to have a limit. Kenya Bureau of Standards technical committees will have a limit of 15 members. So there was a conversation where the industry felt like 15 people is quite a small number. They will say that you guys choose yourselves and then you go set standards for us to comply with. So what the management did was we removed the upper cap. So right now, anyone who has the capacity to contribute towards the standards development process has the ability to join. We have a link on our website where you simply go there, put in your information, and we review these applications every quarter. We take them to the board for approval. So any member of the Kenya Bureau of Standards Technical Committee is approved by the board, the highest organ of our organization. And from there on, they get to engage in TC technical committee activities, which include setting the agenda of the committee and discussing matters such as this. So where one is approved to join, we have been doing this virtually, as well as now we are back to in-person meeting. So the challenges have been, key among them is, standards development is supposed to be driven by the industry. One, you guys, the industry players, are the ones who actually know what you're talking about. The fiber is not, while it's not rocket science, but it's not your everyday, no, not just anyone can contribute to that conversation. So the industry players are the ones to drive this process. Sometimes we've had challenges where members are not facilitated to maybe get time to join a conversation when it's happening. Virtually, it's easier. You call them and tell them, okay, join, and then you can contribute and leave. But physically, like you have to fly in today to contribute. But right now we have a very robust virtual participation in technical committees, as well as in person where we have to. Another thing has been maybe capacity. Sometimes, like in Kenya, we have limited capacity in developing some of these structures, because we find that out of a technical committee, not necessarily maybe on fiber, but you'll find members are not very conversant with what exactly you're talking about. So therefore, when you say, do we set 1 or 2, members are not sure what 1 means and what 2 means. So there have been capacity development where we're partnering with maybe the experts in the committee to actually educate this fellow member that when you set 1, this is what will happen, or this is the implication on the quality of the product or the kind of service you are looking for. So that one, we are bridging that gap of awareness as well as participation. Participation now, anyone can join. If you are conversant in the field, please apply to join. The link is on our website, quick link somewhere there. You will find a link to apply to join, and we will grant you permission. You can join and contribute to the conversation. And for companies, if you are a company owner, please facilitate your members to join. It is the expertise that you are looking for. You have had years, I think a few thousand years in the industry, combined experience. Please lend us your technical committees, facilitate your experts, so that they can join our committees and contribute. One, your voice will be heard, your concerns will be taken into consideration, and it's also a very big networking opportunity for yourselves. When a problem occurs in the industry, you know who to talk to. You won't start throwing stones because you'll be throwing stones at yourselves as a technical committee.
I think that's a call, and not just behalf of KEPS, but I think in every country they have the similar entity. So no matter where you're from, I think the call is there to engage proactively and join these meetings. They sometimes seem a bit tedious, but ultimately they're very, very important in these results. And I think the last question then, maybe Chanel first and afterwards Louise, the same question, maybe the big one about money. You've mentioned about the digital divide.
Yeah.
So we've talked about policies, we've talked about cooperation. What about things around financial incentives and subsidies? How do these work? Can they work? What kind of approach have you seen that could be useful? Maybe Sunil first, and afterwards Louise.
Thanks, Adam. So South Africa is very unique. You know, most countries in the world, you have about 4 fiber network operators. And like I mentioned, you've got 82 fiber network operators in South Africa. So I think investment from a private sector is not too much of an issue. But if you want to start deploying fiber in rural communities, you're going to have to get some form of subsidy or some form of incentive from government. So not necessarily a financial incentive. Like I said, one of our biggest impediments is actually getting out there, getting the way leaves. And quite interestingly, you spoke about different utilities getting together. You know, the electricity department, for example, has a lot of poles. And aerial deployment of fiber, it's common knowledge that aerial deployment is significantly cheaper than trenching. So I don't think it's about capital investment. I think there's a lot of venture capitalists looking at investing in fiber. So it's not so much the money from investing in fiber. It is really government incentivizing the fiber network operators to deploy. The second comment, if I may, Adam, is to piggyback on what Louise earlier said about gated complexes and about estates wanting to roll out their own fiber. And we need to be careful about estates trying to create a revenue stream by deploying their own fiber. I think it was Danielle that just mentioned, deploying fiber might sound easy, but the assurance of that fiber, there's a very complicated process behind that costs billions of rands to assure the maintenance of that fiber. So always from an estate living perspective, you know, the homeowners associations, the estate management need to think carefully before trying to create. There's different ways of creating revenue streams from fiber, not necessarily deploying your own fiber. But an interesting debate on its own.
Yeah, I think that gives a connotation to the wireless networks. In a sense, you have a lot of people looking to build community wireless networks in rural areas around the continent, and they often struggle for similar reasons. They think maybe it's simple, buy cheap off-the-shelf equipment, and they realize actually the reality of commercializing it and maintaining it is not so simple. And then I think from a wireless perspective, as you look at universal service funds, certainly in this continent, they've been very much focused on wireless subsidies, on mobile sites and things, but maybe in the future, they'll start to look more at subsidizing or supporting access to fixed networks as well, as a digital divide moves from just mobile to fixed as well. So hopefully that will happen. I think there's a lot of examples in the Western world around those subsidies, like the US and Europe, so maybe that will come to the continent as well. We won't only be talking about subsidies for mobile, but also subsidies for fixed networks. And then Louise, what do you think about these incentives? And because you cover the whole ecosystem, right?
Yeah, so this is always a bit of a bone of contention, I suppose. You've got to look at, and it's interesting question maybe for the gentlemen down that side as well, is there's two sides to our market. Those are new developments that are busy rolling out, and there's opportunity there because they've got the space to have the ducts and everything provisioned for. The other side of the market is existing communities that are retrofitting, and that's where this, the debate between myself and Sunil will continue, is do property developers and HAs use that as an opportunity to monetize? If they are owning the ducts and they're enabling the telcos to come in, do they have the right to rent those ducts out? And maybe they don't want to own the infrastructure, maybe they don't want to own the network, but there are other opportunities that they are looking at. So it is a bit of an age-old discussion. I think from an incentivized and financing models, I think that residential communities and developments like this, because of the value that they have, are sort of the early adopters of a lot of technologies in South Africa. And so a lot of the lessons learned have been paid on the streets of residential communities. That, you know, when it comes to trenching and trenches not being repaired and the land grab you spoke about, you know, these are things that we've experienced over the last 10 years. So of course residential communities are going to look at this as an opportunity. They're non-profit organizations, but they do have overheads. The question is whether in a situation where you have got a case study that is working for yourselves, who has paid for that fiber? How have you negotiated the relationships with the developers that you are working with? And what kind of, and I think this is where we can learn from you, is what kind of settlement did you come up with? What kind of arrangement have you negotiated? And I think based on that type of information, we can come to the table and look at solutions. There's a lot of wealth of knowledge and information just even here on the panel and in the room. And obviously Huawei is bringing that information across from, you know, internationally to us. So yes, in communities will always look for opportunity. This is a business at the end of the day, but there are ways in which we can skin the cat outside of there being winners and losers. So that's my...
Yeah. Thank you very much, Michelle. I think we need to end it there, as we're running a little bit late, and I'm sure there are cocktails that need to be drunk, or else they will be gone by the time we get there. But I really want to thank especially Mr. Konate and Mr. Katui for coming quite far to be here, and the other colleagues here from South Africa for coming to join us in this panel discussion. I think with that, maybe I'll hand back over to Marius to wrap up the session. Thank you very much, and a round of applause.
Thanks.
Thanks, Louise. Thank you to Adam and the panel. Yes, I think the important thing is opening the debates and having the discussions and finding the mechanisms that supports both ways. And I think it's encouraging to see what has been achieved in certain countries already and the positive steps in getting the relevant standardizations and organizations to be part of the solution. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to, and yes, you've seen quite right. So to the faithful out there, we are reaching the end of our session today, and we're going to go into the lucky draw now. I'm going to ask Mr. Leon Lee to join me first. And just to give you an idea of the prizes that we have up for grab now. Yes, it is... we've got the Huawei Watch GT3 up for grabs. So let's see who the lucky winners are. Mr. Lee, if you can pick a card for us.
The thin watch, right?
I think so. It's a very nice watch. So yeah, we have 5 of them to give away. So just to make sure that it is in my hand this time, we've got Mr. Lee helping us. Prince Seleshu from INQ. Prince, gone. I'm going to go once again. Prince Seleshu from INQ. If you snooze, you lose. The faithful that is here. Let's try another one. Johan Foster, OpenSurf. Is Johan here? Johan, we have a winner. You can hand over to him. Well done, congratulations. Yeah, this is picture time. All right, so those of you with cameras, let's zoom it. Twitter, Facebook, what else is out there? Cool. And it's all good for the networks. Remember that. Traffic is good for networks. Next one.
Next one.
Fiona A. Tespok. Oh, Fiona, we have another winner. Yes, that one. Yeah. Where's your belief in us? Congratulations, Fiona. Third one. Abdul, is it BC Infrastructure South Africa? Abdul. Abdul, Infrastructure South Africa, going, gone.
Oh, I had two.
Kabelo, Chiale, DCDT. Kabelo. If you snooze, you lose. Last call for Kabelo. Only the faithful will get in. Isn't that what the good book says? Johan Smith, Telkom. Johan, well done. Right. It's got all the fitness settings you can ever dream of. Awesome. 2 more to go. Another 2. Yeah. No, there's the last one. Yeah, but we still have 2 watches. Tanya Barker, DFA. Tanya, is that you? Yeah, we have a winner. Yippee! Thank you. All right, the last one, the last watch. Yes. Sure. Competition is heated.
Wow.
Ministry of Information Tanzania, Engineer Kundu, Andrea Matthew. Ministry, is it the minister? Oh, this puts me in a predicament. Oh, yeah. If you see my CV online next week, please consider what has happened. Is it? What do you mean it's not him? From the Ministry of Tanzania? Oh, now I must find that. God. Just give me. No, it's not that one. Ministry. This one. Yeah, here we go.
This is my deputy minister. let me call him.
All right, 99.
Let me call him.
Technically. All right, protocol. I'm going to have to stand with that. Honesty, sorry about that. So the other winner that I withdrew was, I forgot, Rian van Biljon, Arrow. Whoever runs the budget for the gifts, we've got a problem. Okay, but Rian van Bouillon, is he here? Going, gone. Oh, thank God for that one. All right, Rian, sorry. Okay, congratulations, sir. Okay, so for our last, thank you, Leon. So our last prize, please post bodyguards at the door. The Huawei P50 Pro. Now this, I just want to mention as a matter of fact, giving away my age, this phone is worth more than what my first car was. I mean, it was a second-hand Golf, but still. And we're asking our Vice President for the Southern Africa region, Mr. Frank Young, to draw a name for us.
Okay, this is my gold finger.
Zamile Mechenge, Department of Communications. You are gonna Zamile Mechenge, Department of Communication. Next, I like you. You're like my conscience. Next one. Eish. QS David Matu, National Construction Authority, Kenya. My day is made. Well done. You enjoy it. P50 Pro. Well done. Our last item for the day is some closing remarks from Mr. Frank Young. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished delegates, guests, ladies and gentlemen, and we have come to the end of the program today. And the latest gifts told us that we should everything should be held down to the end. It's very fortunate. I think it has been a very hectic day, and my speech will be very brief. Let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you making time to be part of this event, and to all the speakers and panel discussion participants. Thank you for sharing your wealth of insights and knowledge. And to the deputy ministers, directors, director general, and other delegates whom supported us today, some from outside of South Africa. Thank you for taking time from your business schedule and supporting this event. A special thank you to the Digital Council Africa, DCA, for hosting another world-class event. And the team have ordered themselves, and we are privileged to be part of this. The future indeed will be lit up by fiber, and fiber will be the communication arteries that connect the people, organizations, and institutions, allowing for growth opportunities in all verticals of government and industries. And the support and alignment from government and regulators are critical in setting the bylaws and the policies that include all mechanisms that allow industry sharing, pre-provisioning, and rapid deployment, especially around fiber. This will set the foundation for operators and partners to be able to deploy networks timelessly and cost-effective. As the signing of the MOU with Estate Living, witnessed by DCA, underpins this industry understanding of importance of removing barriers that hinder the cost-effective pre-provision of fiber. Again, and thank you for participation today, and feel free to talk to us for our booth outside should you require more information and insight. And the last, I hope have a good evening and enjoy Cape Town. Thank you very much. Good evening, thank you.
To our sponsors and partners, thank you for participating.